also co-founder of Grasshopper, and Mandy Teefey, who I am going to introduce in hot second. But just to let you know, Grasshopper is a career road mapping platform for women. We help you upskill, we help you navigate the workplace and build community. And we're so excited to welcome Mandy Teefey, who is the CEO of Wondermind today. And she's also the founder and CEO of Kick to the Curb Productions, where she's developed award-winning and nominated content that I'm sure you've all seen. She's also Selena Gomez's mom, which, along with a number of reasons that she's going to explain today, Selena and Daniella Pierson are on a mission to help all of us show up for our mental health in a very accessible way. Mandy and team are democratizing mental health and helping us understand how we can practice mental health in the workplace. So welcome, Mandy. Do you want to do a little bit of your own introduction for anything that I've missed?
No, I think you got it all. Is there a little feedback? Are we good? Is there feedback?
Nope, you sound great.
Okay, all right. I was hearing myself, so that sounded strange. I don't want to hear myself. No, you nailed everything. So not much to say, except I'm just thankful to be here and so excited to answer any questions some of you may have after we go through our Q&A.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's go to our first question here for you. Mandy, you've done so much. You are the CEO of this company, which means you're a businesswoman, you're a mom, you are the CEO and founder of another company. You're a mental health advocate. Can you tell us in your own words a little bit about your early career trajectory, how you got to where you are now, and honestly, how you fit it all in?
Okay, well, what the first question with the trajectory, I started out thinking I wanted to be an actress, and I was doing theater and I was going to a conservatory, and then I realized I don't like being in front of the camera, and I just really didn't vibe it whenever, I was kind of in that space. So I've always loved storytelling, and storytelling has just kind of spoken to me my entire life. And there was no other way that I felt like I could do it, unless it was cinematically. And because I'm not a singer, I'm not a songwriter, I'm not a poet. And it's like, so whenever I wanted to start doing film and television, I PA'd and I donated my time to a nonprofit that raised money for cancer patients. That was a film festival. And I worked there for 2 years while finishing the conservatory. And then one day, the Michael Caine, who was the head of the company, he threw me like a $5,000 check, and he goes, "Here's your first job as producer." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing." And he goes, "You'll figure it out." And so I had $5,000 to produce a 30-second spot for a baseball team, not a national pro baseball team. And I ended up doing it, and like, just he figured it out. Everything I've done, I've been thrown into the fire. So I think my best advice with that is whatever opportunity comes your way, no matter how big or how small, if you make the most out of it, you're going to gain something. And, and I have found that being thrown into the fire has helped me. I then had an opportunity to work on an animation called The Ant Bully. And then when I applied to be an assistant, because I'm very aware of my capabilities. And whenever I went there, they go, "Okay, here's your department." I'm like, "Great, who do I work for?" And they go, no, this is your department." I go, no, it is not my department. I do not know what you guys are thinking. And so it ended up being my department. And I got through that one. And all through my life, I have always felt like I was a little different, disconnected, didn't really feel like other people understood me. And and, you know, and I would write, but just for myself, like nothing that I'd ever feel like I would put out. And so I just, I just fell in love with being able to tell those stories, and I've just stuck with it. And, you know, that's how I went through everything, by being thrown into the fire.
I love it. Sometimes that's what it takes. And like you said, sometimes you don't know what you're doing. And you learn along the way, and that actually helps to build your confidence, and sometimes turns into an unexpected and beautiful career.
Yeah. Well, I actually still take courses. I still take classes. I try to do one a semester, but not this semester. But I just love learning, and I think that just makes you better at everything you are. The more educated, the more diverse of an education you have, it's going to make you a better storyteller. And I'm really into psychology, and that came from a very young age. I was studying, I thought I wanted to be a criminal psychologist. So I was studying and reading about serial killers in junior high. And so this true crime phase, like this wave, has been mine for a long time. I've
Same.
been there, and I'm all for it. Like, I'm all about it. But yeah, I just, on my own, without any support or encouragement, or kind of my family being aware of what mental health was, I went to a plethora of doctors trying to figure out, going and went through a bunch of different medications, a bunch of different treatments. And I'm finally, you know, at a place the last couple of years where I found my, you know, concoction, and my self-care, and what I need to do, and to understand myself. But that me, whenever I was earlier misdiagnosed as bipolar, I went and I learned everything I possibly could learn about bipolar. And I think like, with the storytelling, when you're telling other people's stories, the psychology behind it is so important, to keep that narrative honest and true. And that's, you know, that to me is when you can reflect real life inside of art, and make people really look back in the mirror at who they are and what they've done. You have to be honest with that storytelling. And so that's what really has me so excited about Wondermind, is I get to work for an amazing team, and I get to work for an amazing community, and serve them, to help them understand what, you know, we're all going through is the same. And so, yeah, that's what really kind of brought me to this point.
So that's a great segue to our next question for you, which is, what does Wondermind mean to you, and how do you envision the future of the community?
Yeah, when we were brainstorming a name for the company, I was actually had COVID when I came up with the name. So I blame it on the COVID brain, how it came up with it. But what I feel Wondermind means to me is, we should always be wondering about everything, and you know, and wonder about how our mind motivates our heart, how it motivates subconscious. And so Wondermind means to me like an all-encompassing experience. And that's why it's important that we created Wondermind as an ecosystem for mental fitness, because there's, you know, wellness, and then there's physical fitness. But why do we not really pay attention to our mental fitness and our mental health, when that kind of is like the apex of how a human functions, you know? And I envision the community just being everyone. I know that's a very young mentality of like someone who definitely knows that that isn't easy to achieve, but I'm just like, we can do it. Like, you know, I want the future of the community to all be educated, whether it's just feelings you're having, whether, you know, you may not have a diagnosed mental health, but you may not be understanding something you're going through. We want to be able to tackle all of that, so people have a space where they can feel, oh, I'm not alone. And then this is how I can understand myself better. Because a lot of people, I don't think they take the time to understand, you know, or sit in emotions, because they're a lot, and sitting in your feelings can be a lot, but it also can be such a like satisfaction and growth moment. It's just like, it could be beautiful even if it's painful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the next question is around the difference between mental fitness and mental health. Like, why are you focusing on mental fitness?
Because if we work on our mental fitness, we'll understand our mental health. And so we just, it also like, I think helps drop the stigma a little bit, because it's kind of a formula that we're putting together, you know, to work your mind. And we're exploring with, like, you know, product and, you know, film and television, and, you know, we have a hub spot, we have a newsletter, we have all these different things that whatever you're doing, your mind is working. But like, if you shut it down to certain things and you don't open it and work it as if you would work out your body, like, you are going to lose that mental, like, that mental connection, which is so important. So that's kind of why we went with mental fitness. We were just like, okay, there's a lot of mental health companies out there, and the only difference is like, if you had cancer, you wouldn't be ashamed of having cancer and getting the treatment that you need. So your mental health needs to be taken care of just like that. And if you can, you know, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't like tell you what's going to change your life, but we do have a great panel of advisors, and they go through all our content. But I feel like the more communication that we have, and the more that, you know, when you're working on your brain, you actually work, you're working muscles. There's muscles in the brain. So we definitely, that gets a little like beyond my scope of knowledge, but that's why we have professionals that help. But yeah, it's no different than working out your body.
Actually, that's, if you don't mind me asking a follow-up question, I was very impressed with your roster of advisors and professionals who are leaning into the community. So in what ways do they lean in? You mentioned content. Yeah.
Oh, yes, they have done panels for the company. They advise on everything. So, and we also work with CSS, which I'm sure you've heard of, you know, because you're in the popular youth market, and they're amazing ambassadors for the youth community and in all kinds of spaces. But yeah, we just had a creative call today where we kind of see what's trending, and then they advise us on, okay, well, this is what that means, this is how we can navigate this. So we don't put out anything that hasn't been approved by the committee.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just talked a little bit about stigma, but why do you feel it's important to change the narrative on mental health?
And when I say change the narrative, I'm really looking at how we as storytellers can change the way that that society sees it. Because, right, like, so if we go back, and some of my favorite movies were about mental health, but, you know, not everybody is Girl Interrupted. Not everybody is One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, I always love to use Silver Linings Playbook. They had bipolar issues, but they had lives, and they showed that. And so I think if you go all the way back to when mental health was like kind of coming out and being explored, you go back to those days, these people were mistreated, and because they were mistreated and thrown away, they seemed scary. So society has this idea that if you have a mental condition, you know, you are scary and need to be chained or brain zapped, or something that's just so ludicrous if you study the history of mental health. And so it's important for that that narrative change, and me being in entertainment, I feel that's part of my obligation as well. And kind of like in 13 Reasons Why, there's just this one storyline that gets me every time, and it really did divide the community, not the psychology community. They supported it, but like it's very interesting who embraced it and who didn't. But with 13, you're focused on Hannah as she's going through her journey, because you know what's going to happen to her. And the whole other time, there's a whole other story going on with Miles Heiser's character that nobody caught, and he attempts suicide at the end. So it shows you, you don't know who you're looking at or what you're looking at, because they're just like, oh, well, you know, Hannah didn't seem depressed. Okay. I mean, that doesn't mean that there isn't something going on inside of her. You know, you can play tricks on yourself to really get you to project something, you know, just like social media. You're projecting, but that doesn't mean it's actually who you are and what you're going through. Where Miles was screaming from the top of his lungs, nobody cared, even the viewers, you know. And it was like, so it's always a fun thing for me to bring up when talking about that story. It's like that's what I mean by the narrative.
There's a quick thank you here and support in the chat. So I just wanted to call that out.
Well, thank you back.
I would jump in really quick. I was watching the news this morning, and there was a 14-year-old girl, and she committed suicide. And it was something that had been posted online on TikTok, I think. And Mandy, something I've always respected about you, for anyone who's on this call who knew me before Heather and I became a part of Grasshopper, Mandy spoke at the Vanderbilt Be Fearless Summit with Taylor Cassidy, I think a year and a half ago now. And you've always been so vocal and honest about sometimes the detrimental side effects of mental health on young people. And you were obviously a vital part of 13 Reasons Why, which I think was such a great start to the reality behind how mental health and social media come hand in hand. So I'm curious, what has evolved since 13 Reasons Why? Like, what has changed, and has it gone in a positive way or a negative way for showcasing how social media can really be harmful to your mental health?
I am not a social media expert, but I can explain the rest. I feel 13 Reasons Why was one of those it was one of those projects everybody wanted to do and didn't want to do. You know, they were all on board. And I feel like there was no reason why that shouldn't be told, because we are losing children every day, and they are looking for that content that actually speaks to them and doesn't speak down to them, and like supports the world they live in. I didn't have to grow up with social media. All my mistakes, they're back in the past, thank God. Like, so none of them are coming out, knock on wood. But like it's just like, I didn't have to live my life. If I had FOMO by like, I'd have to wait until after the event's already happening. If you're left out on something with social media, everybody's posting about it every 5 minutes. That has to be like an empty feeling for someone who's not getting invited to everything else that their friends are being invited to. And then it almost feels like it's kind of taunting, when I know they don't necessarily mean to do that. They're just like, look at us, we're having fun. I didn't hear about it till Monday morning when I was when I wasn't invited, and it was already done, and I didn't have to see pictures. So you get over it a little bit easier. And I'm very proud of it, because I think it started a really good, solid conversation. Whether the conversation wasn't very receptive of the content, they're still talking about what we need to talk about, and that's losing children to suicide. And so I grew up, I attempted suicide at 7 years old, and I was fortunate it didn't happen. I've never had another attempted suicide, but I know how it feels to be that kid. And so I I don't ever want anybody to ever feel like that, because at 7, what is really the end of the world, for you? And I mean, and I'm not comparing one tragedy or someone else's tragedy as equal or less than, but it's just so important to show these kids that they're being heard. And so that I might not have answered your question, but it just puts me on a tangent of passion.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to make 13.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
We're curious about the challenges that you might face in developing a mental health brand. If in fact you look at it this way, you may look at it more like a community, but it is in fact a brand. So I'm sure you face some challenges, just as you did with producing 13 Reasons.
Well, I think for me, the biggest challenge is I'm not qualified to give advice. And I just want to save everybody. So that's my biggest challenge. It's like, oh, you see a comment online, I'm like, oh no, don't do that. This is going to happen or whatever, because we're all different, right? So we all don't really have the same method of how we fix things, and that's a challenge. How we cope with things, not what might work for one person might not work for another one. So it's like gathering enough intel and gathering the responsible intel and then executing it. And it can be scary, because you may say one word that could be a misrepresentation of either a mental health condition or trauma, or even ADHD, which isn't a mental health condition. It's a disability. And so I really think that the biggest challenge is being there for everyone. That's the hardest part. And and it's been a pleasure. And also trying to raise money for it, when people don't really understand what that means, or they don't have it, that's a challenge. But I'll save that for one of the other questions that I know you're about to ask.
That is difficult, and we certainly get it as entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And so how do you connect with the Wondermind community, and what does it feel like seeing your vision come to life via your members?
Well, I am just myself on social media, and that's pretty much how you're going to get my connection. And like I said, I can't give advice. I can't, we're definitely partnering in the future with other organizations, and really trying to be out there. And the way I try to connect is just to be purely honest about who I am. I always wanted Wondermind to be an us, and not we're here and we're telling you this. So that's why us three having mental health diagnoses and understanding, we want to be equal with our community. We want to grow with our community. So that's how I feel like there's a connection, that we're all growing, and we're going to end up growing at different rates and in different paths. So that's the connection part. And without from our very first investor to everybody at the Wondermind team, we have 2 offices, one in the East Coast, one in the West Coast, and I couldn't be more appreciative of their hard work and passion. And that's the same thing I try to create for the workplace, is we're in these buildings, but we are one. And so that's how I want to see this to be. I want all the wonderful team members to also connect and be, dedicated members, and be one with them as well.
So Mandy, if we DM you on Wondermind's Instagram, will you be in there texting us back?
Wondermind will not let me near Instagram. I have no social access to those. You can DM me. I bet I'll behave. I'll just say, oh, I'm sorry. I can't tell you that.
Amazing. So how have you seen the attitude towards mental health change in the workplace since the pandemic? I have listened to a number of podcasts and just looking at coming from a talent acquisition background, looking at the flexibility that us learning that we can all work from home has lended to, you know, the corporate workplace. I do see things shifting in the way that employers are acknowledging people's challenges. And I'm wondering what you've seen.
It's very interesting because there is a program, a B2B program that we are growing, that where we become a newsletter for a specific corporation. And obviously, you know, there's also other companies that are exploring that as well, in different formats for people's employees. So I've seen that there's a lot more curiosity. There's a lot more willing to hear it out, whereas before, I don't think, you know, they would hear it out. I think the pandemic, as tough as it was, I'm really okay being by myself. I can't work at home. I am at home right now. Like, and so if I have back-to-back Zooms and I'm occupied, I can work at home, but I need an office. I need my team members. I need that creative flow going. And, you know, and what I do feel it did in a positive way is people started recognizing feelings of what they may not have understood before, like the loneliness, what the human connection means, what it means to not be able to go back out and reconnect. Like, so like they could have been huge social butterflies and then not be able to go back and get comfortable, you know, in that space. So I really think,
Did they fix it?
oh, yes.
They fixed it?
Yeah, I
So
literally just crossed
is
it.
everything fine now?
Yeah, it's
What
fine.
happened?
Oops, sorry. I'm
Everyone make sure they're
putting
on
other
mute.
people on mute there.
Okay.
Apologies.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I think that's how we're there, but we're not all the way there for
Yeah,
businesses to understand.
for sure. I mean, I've seen trends where there is an acknowledgement that you can take mental health days as your sick days. There's a lot of advocacy in the workplace. There are ESGs and like interest groups around mental health, and certainly more around disabilities, which is obviously a different thing, but there's just sort of like a progression in the understanding of people. And so I was very curious about what you're seeing trending as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what can we do to help reduce the stigma around mental health?
First of all, education is everything. So maybe taking the time to kind of educate yourself, and you know, be okay to talk about it. It's still like, you know, it's still a little nerve-wracking. I can get like in front of people and tell you all day long, and I am pretty open with mine. I always have been. But I really think education is the key. And Selena always tells this story about how she got over fear of tornadoes. She kept, you know, she was so afraid of them. And so I went and bought her a bunch of books on tornadoes. And then she read all these books on tornadoes. And then she was no longer, because we're from Texas, so we had tornadoes all the time. And ever since she understood what they mean and what they do and like how they function, that's how she overcame that fear. And she said that she kind of took that lesson on. And so but that's just something I truly believe, that I mean, we should be educated on so much more beyond mental health of each other to understand each other and be okay with being different with someone. You know, it's like you know, like in politics, it's okay if you're not on the same party, just hear each other out. Like that's how we learn, is through conversation, and you grow, and just be having a willingness to try to understand something that you don't understand.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to stop with the questions, but open it up to anyone else. So feel free to just jump at it or write it in the chat, whatever you feel more comfortable with, and we'll call on you. Judy wrote tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, fearful of all. Alexa and I are in
Texas
Austin.
too.
We're in Texas too right now, and I just saw my first like bout of tornado season.
Oh,
like
I'm so
a couple
jealous
months
you're in
ago.
Austin. We'll be there for South by.
Yes.
Everybody
Woo!
come see us at South by.
Absolutely. We're actually
Yeah.
hosting a South by event for International Women's Day. So we'll shoot you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll shoot you a note on what exactly it looks like, and you can come by.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I see. Let's do Daniella first. I'm gonna try to unmute you, or you can. There you go. Yeah.
Wonderful. First of all, thank you, Mandy, for sharing your story. I've been following Wondermind for a while since Daniella announced it. I love what you guys are doing. My question for you, as somebody who's trying to launch a business myself and somebody who has a pretty public story around mental health and abuse, how do you suggest that I leverage that story or don't leverage it in terms of like when it comes to like press of the company, securing funds of the company? Like, how do I use that as a strength rather than worrying that people might use it as judging me for a weakness?
I think first and foremost that you really need to understand where you stand with the diagnosis, and like you may feel that you're confident to share something and be open with it, when in reality, I feel like you should really be prepared for like not everybody accepting it and you being okay with that, and it not be putting you in an unhealthy place. So I don't know that, you know, unless it's a mental health company or a mental, you know, like a wellness, I don't know that the story is something that you really naturally need to leverage. But you could also be an entrepreneur who actually has that, and then go out and discuss that, of how you're able to balance everything that you're balancing. I personally don't think there's any shame in talking about it. And obviously we did start a mental health company, so it was just kind of an organic flow. But I think you need to check in with yourself, and then you see how it organically helps you grow as a person, mentally, and as an entrepreneur. And if there is a place for that story, that's going to be beneficial for people who may look up to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that advice.
Thank you.
Judy, I see your hand up as well.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you
Hi.
again, Alexa. My question is something I put into the chat. We actually met in Philadelphia at Drexel when you did your summit.
Hi, yeah, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks. So my brother is like overworked at work, and it's like it's an international company, so it's like dealing with many time zones and everything. So you know, like people normally are like a 9 to 5. He's more like a 7 a.m. to whenever the heck Europe or wherever wants to call him to work on whatever. He's on his laptop like all the time, and he's always like I don't think his mental health is not being helped by all of this. And he's always like upset / angry about work stuff because people aren't pulling their weight and or not finishing their projects on time. And you know, he has a lot of stress because there's a lot of what do you call it, responsibility in his job and all that stuff. And Like, I still don't totally understand his job, but basically Europe and Africa do not get water if he doesn't do his job correctly. That's all I know. It's a numbers finance thing. Um, but I'm trying to figure out like how to like help him. But like every time like I talk to him, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Or like, what can we do to ease and comfort, like make things easier for you or whatever and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like, am I annoying him by asking him like, hey, do you want us to cook something and bring it over for you? Or like, I don't know. I don't know how else to like assist or help.
The one thing I can just say about is maybe encourage a routine. Even though I know it's not possible, trust me, I work in entertainment. There are no sleeping hours. You sleep with your phone underneath your pillow, which is a very, very bad habit, but you get used to it. And I can just let you know like what really changed that and helped me balance everything that I have is I wake up at a very early hour and I created a routine of like meditation. I take like 30 minutes to read. I like then do my sorry, my husband just walked in. And then I meditate, I stretch, and I do all this like stuff. I don't even look at my phone until 6:30. So I take those 2 hours to disconnect, and then I do that like an hour before bed is I don't check anything. And that really helped me balance, I'm not doing international hours. But like I said, we have an office in the East Coast and I need to start getting up earlier, but right now I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I do that routine and it's changed my life. I know you're all going to think I'm crazy, but ever since I've started it, it has changed my anxiety levels. It's made me more efficient at work. And then, so routines is the best advice I can give, A, not being a doctor, and B, not knowing what gets on your brother's nerves, but but like, I think routines is life-changing for anybody who has too much.
Hey, we are
Awesome.
not judging.
Thank you.
You're in front of a lot of early risers who do have different types of routines, and routines are great. Just a follow-up question to this. So how would you suggest approaching someone who doesn't necessarily want the advice? Any tips on that?
I mean, it's an old standing truth, and until they want help, there's nothing you can do. You can let them know you're there. You could say, hey, check this out. Like, I really thought this podcast was cool or whatever. But it's just, I think with any condition, whether it's addiction or, self-harm, you can't do it for someone. You can love them and want it for them, and let them know that you love them and you will be there for them, but you can't, until they want it, they have to want to be better.
Yep, very true.
Yeah.
Rania and Reem, I see your hands up.
Hi, so I'm Rania. I'm Reem. It is so nice hearing your story. And we were wondering, like, as entrepreneurs ourselves, we were wondering how, like, you balance your work life while also still prioritizing your mental health, or like what activities you do or what really helps you prioritize.
Okay, here comes my nerd out. I bujo, like I bullet journal. And so that is like I can't, I'm not an artist. So I buy tons of stickers to decorate. And then I kind of write in like how my day was, or just write whatever I feel like, or I look up different resources through like Pinterest or like articles. And I yes, love making lists. I'm on there and like make lists and just release it and make it for myself. I don't really show, I do show it off actually. Especially my stickers. I'm like, I found some cool sticker books on Amazon, but I do that and I do the routines. So, and you two are absolutely adorable and would love to hear about your business. So DM me.
Thanks so much. We actually have a sticker business.
Oh my
That's like
gosh.
one of our businesses.
Oh my gosh. Definitely DM me because I will buy your stickers and put them in my bujo.
Question for bujoing. Do you actually go back and read your journaling or your bullets?
I
Is there a
do.
method to the madness? Yes.
Yeah, I do. I go back and I'm like, oh, and sometimes like I forgot this, you know, you make your intentions page, and I read my intention page every day and to make sure that I kind of keep it on there. And, you know, also it has to be, I'm one of those bad bullet journal people that gets mad at themselves if it's not perfect. And like, and I had the hardest time. I'm like, I'm not putting white out next to the sticker. Like, so it was very OCD of me, but like that's just an ADHD trait that I have. But oh yeah, crossing things off the list, beautiful, beautiful feeling. And you feel accomplished, you know, even by just doing it, you feel accomplished because you learned something while you were doing it.
Any other questions for Mandy?
I have one really quick one. Where would you like to see Wondermind go? Because you have the podcast, the newsletter, there's a website, there's so many avenues, this B2B newsletter. What is the evolution for this kind of media company?
We're definitely, the best way to put it is we want to be Disney for mental fitness
I love
and
that.
mental health. Yeah. You know, so how it just, everybody loves to be a part of it. Everybody gets a great feeling from it. We want to offer all the resources we can, and, you know, like I say, grow together. And, yeah, I just want it to be a lifestyle, you know, to create a new lifestyle and to appreciate, you know, how we are all created as who we're supposed to be. And that's my cheesy answer.
I love it. We have a similar dream for Grasshopper. So not cheesy. We all need to dream.
Yes. That's what they're for.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here and for telling us about your journey, your struggles, and you know, your Wondermind dream. We've learned so much.
No, well, thank you very much. And it's nice working with you for the first time. And then always Alexa, wonderful. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope I helped or inspired somebody, and I need to see your stickers.
Of course.
Round of applause. I'm so inspired. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. As usual, this talk as well will be sent out within 24 hours. So if you want to rewatch this or anything, it'll be on the Grasshopper Drive. And have an awesome rest of your night.